I mean, look, I'm often skeptical about celebrities getting involved in politics and whether an endorsement can really move the needle. But I think when it comes to Beyonce, like, the math is different. Last week, Beyonce turned up at a Kamala Harris rally. Today, how Beyonce could change the U.S. election. I'm Elamin Abdul-Mahmoud, and this is Commotion. All right, why don't we start here? Because I think this is a moment that a lot of people are talking about right now.
H-Town. We are so happy to be standing here on this stage as proud country Texas women supporting and celebrating the one and only Vice President Kamala Harris.
That is Beyonce giving her endorsement to presidential candidate Kamala Harris in Houston, Texas on Friday. Hey, look, it's an understatement to say that this is a big deal. The election is 8 days away at this point. CT Jones is here to talk about all of this. CT, thanks for being here, friend.
Thank you so much for having me. Love the show. Excited to be back.
The way that CT's like, we get to talk about H-Town, we get to talk about Beyonce.
I'm excited.
I love to see it. I love to see it. Okay, let me just start with this. You watched this live stream of Kamala's rally from Houston. Just like describe the scene for people who missed it, because like there were like rumors that Beyonce could be there. We didn't know for sure whether that's going to happen, and then it happens. Describe the scene for people.
You know how like when I talk about kind of like an angel coming down from the sky. No, I'm just kidding.
Are
but
you?
It was definitely, maybe, who knows? It was very like the definition of a quintessential hometown crowd reception. I mean, I doubt you would hear louder screams for an artist who, let's be clear, was not actually performing. She was just there and brought the entire room down.
Yeah.
She came out with Kelly Rowland. She looked beautiful, but I think one of the things that was so incredible was obviously just the energy that it kind of brought to the room.
Yeah.
People were excited, people were ecstatic, and it kind of, combined this huge energy of people in Texas being there to potentially vote in the first Black woman president.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's something about Beyonce in general where she can just like command a room by just standing there. And so when she just said that H-Town and then just went silent, like those tears could have genuinely gone on for 8 minutes straight. And she would have been like,
need to talk.
She didn't.
She could have just stood there.
She could have just stood there. She didn't though. She spoke for about 5 minutes. Let's just hear a little bit of that speech.
I'm not here as a celebrity. I'm not here as a politician. I'm here as a mother. A mother who cares deeply about the world my children and all of our children live in. A world where we have the freedom to control our bodies. A world where we're not divided. Our past, our present, our future merge to meet us here. Imagine our daughters growing up seeing what's possible with no ceilings, no limitations. Imagine our grandmothers. Imagine what they feel right now. Those who have lived to see this historic day.
Beyonce reminding us that people did not fall out of the coconut tree. CT, what stood out for you about Beyonce and what you had to say that day?
I mean, I think it's always important for an artist who is there to nominate a political person to just really, that's not the time to mention how many Grammys you have. And Beyonce is the queen of knowing what the moment is for. I think it's incredibly important that she mentioned and referenced specific policies. Abortion is obviously going to be a really hot button issue. And as kind of a hometown crowd, I think it was really, really important for her to kind of mention the historic nature of it. As, my grandmother is an AKA. She loves talking about voting. So kind of, I think it is fair to be like, there are people who have waited and waited and waited for this moment. I think it was an excellent choice all around.
I think also there is a history to Beyonce that I think is maybe worth talking about, her history with politics, because I do think, let's just talk about how public she has been in the past with her political endorsements and political appearances. What's Beyonce's history with politics?
I think Beyonce is actually a really fascinating case because she is one of those people who has become a superstar without being forced to be apolitical, right? Their post 2005 you pretty much always know what Beyonce is going to stand for, right? Her music cannot be divorced from her political opinions. I mean, it's why you have such an iconic Super Bowl performance with an homage to the Black Panthers. You have the Formation music video standing, in the wreckage of Katrina. You have Black Lives Matter being such an inherent part of her discography. You also have Black is King. You have all of these moments where Beyonce is saying, I'm a proud Black woman. Here are the things that I support. And you even have her kind of directly endorsing a lot of politicians. I mean, she's famously Democrat. She famously lends her hand to Democratic causes. If you're seeing an ad on TV and you hear a Beyonce song, it's going to be for the Democrats because you know what else she has? A great legal team. Okay. If you're hearing a Beyonce song, it's because she or someone on her team wants it there. Okay.
She's very good at shutting down where she doesn't want her music to be. And that is its own separate skill, right? Like that is like a skill that we don't really talk about enough. And of course, like part of the reason we're here is like, in fact, Kamala Harris is using freedom. And the day that it was announced that Kamala Harris is going to be using freedom as her like sort of anthem throughout this whole campaign, everyone was like, oh, that is the Beyonce endorsement. Like the fact that this showed up here is in fact a testament to this very thing you're talking about how her music finds its way very intentionally, very deliberately into some of those spaces. I want to say that Kamala's kind of leaned heavily on celebrity endorsements in this election. She just picked up a bunch, not just Beyonce, but like J-Lo, Bad Bunny, Ricky Martin. Donald Trump has kind of leaned on celebrity endorsement entirely in a different way. You saw Hulk Hogan and Dr. Phil show up at his rally at Madison Square Garden this weekend, which that's a whole other conversation that I don't even have time to get into. But do you want to just talk about celebrity endorsements in general and whether they work or when do they work well?
Yeah, I think one of the really fascinating things about politics is that you can never really predict what is going to work. And I think it's very fascinating because a lot of the things that the Harris campaign is doing right now would not have worked for Hillary.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the very famous example of Hillary's team trying and failing to kind of capture a younger audience by memifying some of their social media decisions. I mean, Pokemon go to the polls. We'll never forget that.
No, I say that all the time, casually.
I think it's hilarious. I think it's so funny. But I also think it's fair to note that there is no one correct way to kind of get people on your side. And the horrible part about memes, which I'm sure is frustrating, it could be an entire policy course, is that some things will work, some things won't. Kamala is Brat, the reference to Charlie XCX's incredible album this year.
Yeah.
The odds of that backfiring were high.
Incredibly high.
Incredibly high.
Yeah.
If this were a different timeline, we could have been like, and why did Kamala is Brat lose the election for her? You know what I mean? You can't ever predict when something is going to land, which is why people lean on celebrity endorsements, because when you're not looking for a specific meme, you just say, here is an artist. If we could get even a small percentage of the people who are one of their monthly listeners on Spotify to actually cast a vote for the person they're supporting, this could change the tide. I think the problem you see with Beyonce is because, unlike some other performers, she's not an apolitical artist. I would be hard pressed to be like, there is a huge super fan of Beyonce who before this appearance was like, I don't know.
Could go either way on this one. Yeah.
I don't know, guys.
Yeah. And also, like, I think you'd be also hard pressed to say, find a Beyonce fan who's like, I really love her, I just can't stand her politics. Like that does not seem to cohere with like the Beyonce proposition has the politics kind of baked in. Like you kind of show up being like, I want the politics at the door. I should say just a background in terms of like the political reasoning for why Beyonce, was unveiled at Texas at this Houston rally, is the Democrats think that they can flip Texas. They think that Ted Cruz's seat in the Senate is actually vulnerable, and they're making quite a concerted effort in this like last week. And when you make a concerted effort in Texas, who do you call but the other governor of Texas, aka Beyonce? Look, we are 8 days away from the campaign at this point. Do you think this Beyonce endorsement and this Beyonce rally came at the right time for Kamala's team?
I think for Texas, it was an absolutely smart move, especially because Beyonce in the past famously endorsed Beto O'Rourke. I mean, I'm sure the hat will come back into rotation.
Yep.
I think it was helpful for a good Texas reception. But I do think that if the Harris campaign was actually focused on winning over voters overall, I think the next step would actually be policy based. So instead of just celebrity endorsement after celebrity endorsement, we get it. Your husband loves Bruce Springsteen, don't we all? I think what would be stronger and more consistent for her team and could, easily ensure more votes is if she was actually taking stronger stands policy wise for the people who want to vote for her but have ethical qualms based on kind of her surroundings about the Israel-Palestine conflict. And I think if they were to give definitive answers and Beyonce, then she'd take it home for sure.
CT, you missed the memo that this was a vibes election. I don't know if you heard about this. I mean, it's a phrase.
Vibes?
The phrase keeps recurring in a lot of different news outlets. The idea that this is not a policy election, quote unquote. It's not really about what each candidate is promising. I like that CT's give me policies because that's what I like to vote on.
I'm so sorry. Historically, a vibes election, not great for my people. So I just would love maybe a couple of answers.
That is so real. And also that is a place we have to leave it. CT, you're the best, man. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Of course.
Have a good rest of your day, guys.
You too. CT Jones writes about the internet and pop culture for Rolling Stone. I'm Elamin Abdul-Mahmoud, and this is Commotion. All right, let's get into this next topic with this.
If there was ever the original influencer, it's Martha.
The hardest thing is to retain cultural relevance as an older woman, and she's done it.
I was considered crazy, but it worked. She was preposterously perfect. Perfect little pattern.
Perfect. Things look fabulous, but are they?
That is a bit of the trailer for a new documentary coming out this week on Netflix. It is called Martha. And the reason it's called Martha is because there's only one Martha that just gets a single name called Martha, and that is Martha Stewart, which is extraordinary. Here's something that's extraordinary to me. In the span of 50 years, that's an incredible span, Martha Stewart has been a lot of things. She's gone from being a celebrity homemaker to a billionaire media mogul, convicted felon, Snoop Dogg's best friend. A lot of things have happened over the years. Now we get to this place. She's 83. She continues to occupy space in pop culture that is rarely granted to women her age. But when you're dealing with someone who has lived their life so publicly, it's a little bit hard to figure out if a new documentary can even deepen your understanding or introduce you to something that you don't already know. And so Aramide Tinubu and Bee Quammie are here, and we're going to get into it. What's up, y'all? How's it going?
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm delighted that both of you are here. Aramide, can I just start with you and your feelings, maybe your feelings about Martha just heading into this documentary before you even press play on this thing?
For sure. I feel like she's always been a part of my life. My mom had the books. My mom wasn't a homemaker by any means, but she had her books and things. And I remember when I was in high school, she was arrested, and the Cat Williams special, the Pimp Chronicles, he was like, Martha didn't do anything wrong. She just moved her money. And that's kind of how I've always thought about it. To be honest, it just seemed, I didn't know much about it at the time, but after watching the documentary, I think I still pretty much feel the same way.
Can I just say, very few convicted felons make people smile the way that Martha Stewart is making y'all smile right now. There's something about knowing the fact that she went to literal prison, and people are like, it's different with Martha. You know what I mean? It kind of registers different. B, can we talk about this? Because this is a second Martha Stewart documentary that is out this year. HBO had one called The Many Lives of Martha Stewart that came out in January. Why do you think we're seeing such an interest in Martha right now?
I think Martha fits into what I see overall as this nostalgia for pop culture from a time when we kind of felt like we knew what life was all about. I feel like we're in a moment right now where we don't know where we're going. We don't know where AI is taking us. We don't know what's happening with the election. We don't know what's happening with anything. So much is disappearing. You don't have physical DVDs anymore, and your favorite streamer takes the show off that you used to love, and it's just gone. We're just losing so much, and we don't really know where we're going. So I think we're seeing this return to grasping onto icons and moments from the past to kind of relive them with a new lens. And Martha and these documentaries totally fit into that.
I like that I asked you, hey, why do you think we're seeing so many Martha Stewart documentaries? And your answer was, don't you wish for a better and simpler time? Like that's
basically
that's where you just took me. I did find it kind of fascinating in the documentary how they tried to connect everything that Martha has done with sort of like modern day language. Like they said, hey, Martha Stewart, she's the original influencer. That's like a direct quote from this documentary. How did that sit with you? Did you hear that and go, no, she was actually a different thing?
You know what? When I was reading some of the press stuff and I saw that quote and I thought, really, Martha, the first influencer or the original influencer? But when I watched it and saw the talking points about how she was able to build a business utilizing her personal life and her own personal aesthetic, I'm like, that's exactly what an influencer does. She let us into her home, into her, she was Nara Smith before Nara. Like, she was in the kitchen cooking up, chefing things, right?
Oh, no.
Before Nara was even like an idea in somebody's brain. So, and it totally plays into how her business grew as well from that initial kind of, hey, I'm going to put myself out there in the things that I love about homemaking and see where it goes. Yeah. Because they talk about the moment when her marriage breaks down and she was about to go out on tour with a new book and she was nervous that everybody was going to care.
Yeah.
And I found it interesting. This is where it makes it different between then and now, was that the tabloids cared about her divorce, but the women coming to get their book signed didn't care. They just wanted what she had to offer. And I think that's an interesting thing to look at too, in terms of influencing, if we can call it that then, and influencing now.
I have to say, so go ahead. Were you going to say something, Aramide? It looked like you were.
No, I was going to say that's absolutely true. But I think it also kind of made her more human in a way. If your marriage is falling apart, maybe my marriage is falling apart, or I'm not happy. Sure. So in that way, it does very much parallel influencing in the way that we see it now.
Very true.
Well, as I was watching this documentary, look, this documentary is not reinventing the wheel, Aramide. Like, it's like, you're sitting down with the subject, interspersed in there are some sort of talking heads and voices that you hear who are sort of giving some context to some of the stuff that he's hearing. But a couple of moments stuck out for me, Aramide, including the moment where Martha was sort of sitting down and talking about how her one husband cheated on her. And then you hear the director off camera be like, yeah, but you cheated too. And she was like, yeah, but that was different. He was tall and he was Irish, and it was just like one time, and it made me, like, I had to pause the show to laugh so hard at the way that she's characterizing this. But that moment really stuck out for me. Can you just describe the relationship that she has with the director of the documentary, R.J. Cutler? What do you make of the relationship that they had, Aramide?
So RJ definitely has done this before. Like, he's an award-winning documentarian, and he's someone who obviously likes to get comfortable with his subjects. And I think he's someone probably Martha sought out or, reached out to. Yeah. She's very much a woman in control of her own narrative, as she's always been. It's kind of why her brand stood the way that it did until she had to go to prison. And so I think she tells herself a narrative. She's 83 years old, and we all know, women of a certain age, there's a narrative of their life that they live by, whether it's right or wrong. These are the facts that they tell themselves. Yeah. And what she's essentially saying is, I had my flings, but he fell in love with this woman that worked for me. And that is a little bit different. I'm not going to do too much with it, but it's very different. And I've hired this woman to come help me with my gardening and my flowers, and you run off with her versus I had a fling. I'm not saying it's, not wrong on her behalf, but I kind of understood what she had to say.
No, I didn't realize that I was like on a call with the Martha Stewart Defense Fund, y'all. Like, that's wild to me. But I love that moment, because you could sort of see in her eyes, like she was like, it just is different. And now I'm talking to Aramide, and she's like, yeah, man, it is sort of completely different. Okay, I want to play you a clip from this film. For the first half of this film, we see Martha sort of like building this empire. She's become America's first self-made woman billionaire. And then this happens.
I was on the top of the world. And then the worst thing that could possibly happen happened.
Martha Stewart was indicted on criminal charges.
This is a targeted prosecution. It's what we're calling a bitch hunt.
I was a trophy for these idiots. I was dragged into solitary, no food or water. Those prosecutors should have been put in a Cuisinart and turned on high.
I mean, that's a good line. I mean, that just is a good line. Okay, so 2004, Martha Stewart begins a 5-month sentence in prison for insider trading. And then here's the thing that happens that I find endlessly fascinating. This tarnishes the image of almost anybody who goes through it. Insider trading is like you made money, by knowing things that you maybe shouldn't have known. And it does not tarnish Martha Stewart's image. In fact, it enhances it. It launches an entire new phase of her career. She's hanging out with Snoop Dogg. She's on the cover of Sports Illustrated, swimsuit issue. Bee, what does this movie tell us about how Martha was able to turn what, by all measures, is a scandal, and then she kind of turns into like, oh, way more than a hiccup. It's actually like it's the pivot point of her career.
Well, I think the thing that can't be ignored is that Martha Stewart is an attractive white woman of means and influence. So and what I learned, because I was young when the trial happened as well. So I just knew it was something about money and, whatever she was in, then she was out.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people probably looked at this as, it should have just been a blip. She shouldn't have been in there in the first place. So of course we're going to ride for her and we're going to support her when she comes out. So I think that brand wise, she was kind of Teflon. Like she just went and did her thing. She came out and then she had this additional perspective to add on top of what she had already acquired. And but the interesting thing though is she kind of entered a prison of a different kind, because coming out and now being a convicted felon, she lost the ability to control her business.
Right.
So it did put her in a place where she had the TV show, the daytime talk show, and she had different things that still kept her out there, but it wasn't the way she wanted it. So it would have been really interesting to find out more about how she felt really kind of living through that moment in her own words in that phase, because she was Teflon, but I really wonder how she looks back at that and what regrets she has, or if she feels like, you know what, I didn't like it at first when I came out, but it all ended up cool. Snoop's my bestie, so we good. Like, it could go either way.
Yeah, the Snoop is my bestie. It continues to be one of the wildest developments. I think because when they started hanging out and becoming friends, like it was obviously but post the prison sentence, Aramide. And it's sort of like, it was like a quote unquote joke that sort of gave her credibility in a different kind of space. But then it stopped being a joke and just started being like, oh, these two actually really are friends. They did that, they did some Olympic coverage together this year. They're often seen together on lots of different campaigns. What do you make of that relationship and how it's played out in public, Aramide?
I actually love it. I think Martha says in the documentary that she doesn't like stupid men. So she's always talked to men who are really smart.
That's right.
Like Snoop is a very smart person. Like he's been able to he also was on trial for murder in the 90s. You have to think about that. He was acquitted. He has really been able to catapult his career to something other than just this West Coast rapper. Very smart. They can talk about businesses. Like she went to the Olympics for him because he's terrified of horses, which I thought it was hilarious. And she was there as like a support system. So I just think it's really genuine. I don't think at that age, the age that she's at, not to be ageist or anything, that you hang out with people that you don't want to be around just for the sake of it. Like, I think that would be a little bit ridiculous.
Yes.
So I really enjoy, and I feel you can feel the authenticity. As Bea was saying, that previous show that she was kind of forced to do that didn't feel like her, it felt forced. And because it felt forced, it did not survive. But whatever she does with Snoop, whether it's like the cooking show or like their big commercials or whatever it is that they do, it feels authentic because it is. And Martha obviously is not someone who suffers fools easily.
Yeah.
So she's not just going to sit around and tolerate certain stuff. And she doesn't have to. Like, if she didn't want to work and be out here, she does not have to do that. So that really is, I think, a testament to the authenticity of their friendship.
Listen, watching this documentary, I would say not only does she not suffer fools easily, I don't think she suffers fools at all. Like, I think she's sort of at a place in her career where she's like, no, you know what? This doesn't do anything for me. I'm kind of done with this. It is extraordinary, I think, to watch this documentary and remember that Martha Stewart is 83 years old. This is not a culture that makes a lot of space for women in that age bracket. And so the fact that she has persisted through time, the fact that she's done all of this, it makes her a fascinating figure. I can take 4 more Martha Stewart documentaries and not get tired of this. Aramide and Bee, I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you
so much.
Much appreciated. Aramide Tinubu is a TV critic for Variety. Bee Quammie is a writer and media personality based in Toronto. Martha is going to be available for you to watch on Netflix this Wednesday. Please watch it, and then let's talk about it, because I have so many more questions about her life. In the meantime, that is it for the show today. My name is Elamin Abdul-Mahmoud. This show is called Commotion. Hey, if you're on Instagram, can you hang out with us? We are at Commotion CBC. You know what? I'll see you tomorrow. If you're going to be here, I'll see you then.